Hi there. Welcome to The Preventable, the podcast giving you a seat at the table with conversations about the intersection of alcohol, drugs, and mental health in everyday lives. Take a seat and join us.
Welcome to The Preventable. With me today is Dave Kuntz. He is the executive director of R3 Development. You and I have become sort of new friends.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. This is fun.
I called you or texted you like 2 nights ago, and I'm like, help! You said happy to do it.
Yeah.
So thank you very much for being here.
Yeah, I'm excited to chat.
R3 Development. What the heck is that? By the way, did I say your last name right?
You did.
Okay, great.
Yeah, you got
awesome.
it.
All
Yeah.
right. What is R3 Development?
So R3 Development is a youth employment and housing development organization serving East St. Louis. So we're about 7.5 years old, and we work within the city of East St. Louis to employ youth and train them in the area of construction. So we give them a tangible way to rehab their community, all the while building the job skills, the life skills to help them be career ready. So,
well, I mean, you're speaking my love language with life skills, so
yeah.
I love that. A couple of things that I just want to ask and dive into a little deeper. So most of our listeners are in the St. Louis region, but not all of them are. So can you talk to me a little bit about East St. Louis and some of the unique challenges that community faces first?
Yeah. Well, how much time do we have?
Right, I know.
Yeah, so it's the place you don't go. At least that's the narrative.
That's the narrative, right?
And I would like to change that narrative.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, lots of unique challenges in the community. Several decades ago, it was a thriving town of 80,000 folks.
I mean, it was like a Harlem.
Yeah, it was the place to come and find jobs. Like if you were looking for employment, you'd go there. Now it's on the other end of the spectrum, and there's a job crisis, and the labor force participation rates for those 16 and older 25 percentage points lower than the national average.
Wow.
So, lots of corruption, white flight, various challenges that have brought to the demise of the city, a lot of injustice. And I think naturally humankind wants to run from some of those challenges and facing those hard conversations and facing some of the injustices. And so, the city is where it is today. And it is way different than people see. It's way different than the news portrays. You would be blown away if I took you there. One, you would not be unsafe.
Right.
And then two, the amount of good that's happening, the amount of initiatives that are happening would blow your mind. It's just there's a lot of hurdles. There's a lot of roadblocks.
And so really what you're doing, so young people are referred to you, I'm assuming through a variety of different ways, and you're teaching them job skills and in the hopes that, well, at the same time, they're really bettering their community, but in the hopes that they also, really start, if they haven't already, just really believing in the power of their community.
Yeah.
Right. And really, while you're a nonprofit, you're their employer.
Yeah. So it's a unique position.
Super cool to me.
So and we have a faith component to who we are.
Yes.
So we're giving them hope beyond themselves, believing that God, there's a God who created them with dignity and purpose. So we build relationships with the schools and really our students tell our story. They tell their own story of the work they're doing within the organization and the jobs that they have to rebuild the community. And so they recruit their peers. And so we are an actual employer. Kids come on our payroll. So, I have, 35 employees on my payroll, from staff to students to, so they're making an hourly wage. They're building a job history. Statistically, individuals who work for every year an individual works in their teens, their income rises 14 to 16% in their 20s.
No way.
So, it's a game changer.
Right. And I mean, learning how to show up and how to be held responsible and how to communicate with their boss and all of that. I mean, those are real life skills.
Yeah, it's critical. And so many within the East St. Louis community have not been given the atmosphere and the opportunities to thrive.
Mm-hmm.
So, there's this mentality like, well, those who live in challenge, those who live, in those challenging contexts, like they just need to like work harder, pick themselves up by their own bootstraps.
Pick themselves up by their bootstraps. That's right.
But if you don't have boots, that's really hard. And so for us, it's about how do we help provide the resources and the hope to see, like, gosh, not only am I gifted and talented, but I need people to believe in me.
Correct.
Right? Like I look at my own story, I look at my family and the amazing mentors and people around me that help get me where I'm at.
Those protective factors.
Yeah.
Yep.
And not to say that our kids don't have some of those things.
Of course.
But the roadblocks and the challenges even beyond, like, for example, like a kid applies for a job and on their resume it says they're from East St. Louis. Like most employers, like they're counting them out. Like, oh, you're from there. Like, no. That's wrong. And so we're trying to change that, and so we advocate for kids. We get calls about kids. We're able to send references. I get requests for reference letters all the time.
Yep.
We believe in who our kids are.
And so these kids are swinging hammers on your payroll.
Yeah.
So are you a construction guy?
I am. So it's a funny story because I grew up around construction, not like construction job sites per se, but like residential. So my dad's been a real estate investor for 30 years. Him and my mom have owned not only rental properties, but Subway restaurants. So I've constantly been around Subways being remodeled or homes being remodeled.
What's your go-to sandwich? Can I tell you, this is my burning question that I wanted to ask you. What's your go-to? You like the tuna?
So here's the caveat though. So I managed Subways for 8 years, so I know the ins and outs, and I always want to know, like, there's a 72-hour rule on that tuna. So I look at it and I'm like, I think that could be like beyond the 72-hour rule. So at one time I was ServSafe certified. So,
okay, all right. Okay, so tuna's your go-to.
I do. Not every time, but a lot of times.
But a lot of times, okay. When I used to eat meat, it was like a meatball sub with olives and Parmesan cheese. It was like... got me through college, pretty much.
Yeah.
I digress. So you're around Subways, and because your parents are owning them, and then you start working there, right?
Yeah. So I have a theology degree. Went after college to go and teach Bible and Christian development at a Christian school for 5 years. Transitioned to help plant a church, start a church. So I was bivocational. I started church as a pastor and manage Subway restaurants.
Bivocational.
Yes.
So 2 vocations.
2 jobs to pay the bills.
How do you plan a church?
It's hard. It's a separate podcast.
Right. Okay, it's a separate podcast. I've never heard of somebody be like, I was supposed to plan a church. But okay, it's part 2. Yes.
It's the power of God, the grace of God. But,
okay. So you're bivocational. You're doing 2 things at once.
Yeah. So here I am in this Subway environment. It's my parents' baby, so I'm like, I'm gonna make this work, and when you're a responsible person and you stick around for very long, you rise, right?
Yeah, people notice.
Yeah, so that happened. I went from being an assistant manager who worked about 20 hours a week and had a set schedule to several years later moving towards managing 3 stores, and it just became not what I wanted.
Yeah.
And so I was here pastoring and loving and serving my employees, but at the end of the day, you can't be like, well, sorry, we didn't have your sandwich ready because we were having a meaningful conversation in the back about how to overcome the challenges in your life. In the midst of that process, R3 development came on my radar. Actually took a break from pastoring and went and rehabbed a home. So I was in the process of flipping a home when I got a call, and they said, hey, will you send us a resume? And I was like, I guess I better put one together. And so many things just lined up. And I could tell you so many stories about how from my perspective, like God just prepared me for this experience, this journey. My first reaction was anywhere but East St. Louis. And then I got there and I was like, no, this is the place. Like, this is where the work needs to be done. And God's wired me for it.
I'm going to ask you a question, and I do not mean this critically, but I'm sure you've been asked it before. If you're listening to this podcast, you are white.
Mm-hmm.
I am white.
Yeah.
So it feels a little weird to me to be talking about East St. Louis as two white people. And I know sometimes nonprofits, including ours in the past, and I'm sure you have to sort of check yourself constantly, as do we, like when we go into challenging communities and communities of color, not saying all communities of color are challenging, but those are two separate things, right?
Sure.
It's hard. In the past, it has been our tendency to come across a little white savior right?
100%.
And so as a white man leading this organization, how do you and your staff like work to not be that? I mean, for us, man, we have to work all the time.
Sure.
Because it's not something that you do on purpose.
Right.
But it's also something you actively have to work against.
Yeah.
So how do you go about that at your organization?
It's really hard work. My posture, I try to lead from a position of learning, and I ask a ton of questions. So, like, I give an example. We had a group of realtors come to East St. Louis, and they were all white, and they were coming to serve. And I shared the story of the community. I shared the story of the work that we're doing. And there was a community member in the room. And I shared the story. And when I got done, I went over to her and I was like, "Did I get that right?
Yeah.
Like, did I represent you well?" Because I don't live in East St. Louis, but I'm there every day.
Mm-hmm.
And so the opportunity to empower and to see, like, one of the R's in our name is to respect dignity.
Oh.
And our position on that is we don't give people dignity. We either affirm it or not affirm it, but I believe God has given everybody dignity, and we can either respect that or not. And so really trying to lead from the position of there's inherent worth and value in every human being, especially those that society has cast out,
right?
Which by and large is the Black community. And so we mobilize lots of volunteers into the community and face that same challenge of like this white savior mentality, and it's complex. It's really complex. And so thinking about it from the perspective of like community-based asset development, if I'm getting that term correctly, but like everything that is needed to rebuild the community already exists within the community.
Totally.
And how do we empower and help bring that to a point of human flourishing? But it's messy. It's tremendously messy work that
I feel like just when I think that I'm doing okay, I like am hit with an example where it's like, ooh, I did not do that well, or I really botched that.
And so for me, it's leading from a position of humility. Like, I'm not here because you need me.
Right.
I'm here because I want to affirm and bring to life what no one else will, or what few will. And so it's a privilege. So I try to lead the organization from a perspective of like, we're serving every day, and we get to do this. It's not that we have to do this. And I mean, shoot, we're one of many who are doing really good work in the community. I'm really proud of what we do.
Yeah. So speaking of that, not to put you on the spot, but name or no name, it's fine. But like, what does success look like for one of the young people that come on your payroll? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah.
And it could be a small success, or something that I might think of as a small success, or it can be, this like huge success story that you plaster all over the annual report. Like, what does success look like to you?
Yeah.
By the way, we all love annual reports. Funders, if you're listening, we love annual reports.
Absolutely.
Keep them coming.
So for us, it's really geared around employment, and helping kids be prepared for life after high school, and enter into the workforce successfully. But as I say that, what I'll also paint that picture with is thinking about KPIs.
Yeah.
Familiar with that?
Key performance indicators.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
I would argue that one of our KPIs is joy. So
I knew I liked you.
in the midst of serving and working in generational poverty, the amount of just challenges that are present and that our community has to overcome every single day is, on one hand, it's evil, and it's unjust, and on another hand, it's debilitating. Poor people aren't lazy; they're some probably harder workers than us, and sometimes it's situational and circumstantial, and sometimes it's generational. So for our kids, the sheer fact that they show up at work and their disposition changes, and they laugh and they smile.
They can be kids.
Yeah.
They can be high schoolers.
Absolutely.
With part-time jobs.
So seeing like the guard come down. When I first arrived in East St. Louis 4.5 years ago as director, I sat down with a local pastor and I said, "Tell me what I need to know." And he said to me, "If you build their trust, you'll have it for a lifetime." And so that's been my mission, like for the last 4.5 years, is like, how do I build the trust of those that I get the chance to stand in front of and build relationships with, so that I can try to help serve and love them and help them get wherever they want to go and become all that God's created them to be. And so with that, like as an organization, so we're an employer. So I've fired interns in the past, right, for various reasons. It holds a lot of weight.
Of course.
The fact that, hey, we're a real job. So we're helping you gain a job history. We're helping you be, employable down the road and even now. But also it's creating a platform where they kind of have to listen to us if they want to be successful. And that, I don't mean to say that in a manipulative way.
No, I understand.
But it's
You
just
have a roadmap.
neat. Yeah. So, we want to push back the statistical evidence that success in pursuing employment from the East St. Louis community it's awful, right? It's 25 percentage points lower than the national average. So that's part of what birthed our organization. So we're helping those kids become employable. Overarching all that is that joy piece is, I want our kids to step up every morning and be like, I have a purpose today. I can do something.
I get to go to work.
I rehabbed that home right there. Like, you see that, Mom? And I have a really cool story I'll share real quick. We had a kid who accidentally knocked a hole in his wall. He wasn't angry and punched it or anything, but he accidentally knocked a hole in his wall. And so he comes to me one day at work. He's like, Mr. Dave, can I borrow our tools? He shows me a picture and he's like, I need to fix this, this drywall. And so we go out in the shop and we grab a piece of drywall, and I'm like, yeah, you can take this. And I get him a mud knife and some drywall mud and a mud pan and drill. I give him everything he needs to take it home. And a couple hours later, I get a text and he's like, fixed, and he fixed it.
Awesome.
It's so rewarding to be able to look at something that you physically do with your hands.
Yep.
Not to mention hands-on work is trauma friendly. And so the fact that our students can literally drive around the city and be like, hey, let me tell you what I did in that home. Hey, you see that? I rebuilt that. Hey, you see, they literally can do that. It inspires a lot of hope.
And that has to build such a sense of pride, not only within themselves and within their family, because I can just imagine if it was me, my mom would be like, Nicole built that. Did you know Nicole was part of that? So the family pride, but then also pride in community, because there's a theory that I'm sure you know way better than I do that's called the broken window theory, right? That people who live in areas that are not well maintained and taken care of because of poverty and because of racism and whatever. I mean, it just
it's something you take on as your identity.
Exactly. And it's like, well, then maybe I'm a broken window,
yes,
right?
Absolutely.
And so the ability to be able to make a change in yourself first, of course, but then also in this community. I mean, I think it kind of gives me goosebumps. I just think it's incredible, you know, and it is life-changing.
Sure.
So what is next for R3? Like what's next for you?
So we are really shifting a lot of things when it comes to empowering our students to lead forward the work that we're doing. So we're really restructuring our program to create leadership roles within the organization for youth to lead.
Yep.
So, you know, it's like this summer we've created a junior staff position that our students are actually leading projects. And we're really shifting things to help our students even lead volunteers that come into their own city. We've done it loosely in the past, but I think we're really positioned to really shift that and to grow our space for hands-on learning and those types of environments. And so continuing to rehab homes through youth employment. We're really also investigating, like, how can we help the elderly in the community who, you know, are trying to age in place, who are really looking to...
who are some of the stewards and gatekeepers and bastions of the community. Yeah,
and the pride in East St. Louis is amazing. It's so fun to be around, and I've heard of people who move away to other cities and then they move back because they're just like, no, this is home. So yeah, we have a lot of fun initiatives coming up.
If people want to volunteer or they want to learn more about your organization, where do they go?
Yeah, so r3development.org tells all about the work that we're doing. We have a volunteer day the second Saturday of every month.
Good to know.
From 8 to 2, we're rehabbing some home or doing some project in the community. It's a great opportunity for people to come just see what's going on in the community.
Do you have to be like a God person to go volunteer?
Absolutely not.
Okay. All right. Just asking for our listeners at home.
Absolutely not.
Very cool. And I'm sure people can find you on socials and all that good stuff.
Yeah. R3 Development. Search us up.
Awesome.
There's some amazing things happening. So
thank you. So amazing. That's quite an understatement. Thank you so much for answering my frantic text.
Yeah.
I just think that what you're doing is really incredible because I think life skills are really underestimated, and I think trades are very underestimated. I know I'm sort of preaching to the choir here, but I think you're marrying all of that, and you're improving and bringing back a community that used to be like really awesome.
Sure,
and
absolutely.
I want for the greater St. Louis community, for East St. Louis to be back and better than ever in its own way, whatever that looks like.
Absolutely. The success of East St. Louis does shine a light on St. Louis.
1,000,000%.
And most people want to just
they want to siphon it off, and it is part of St. Louis.
Yeah.
So it's right now it's the place you don't go, and that's really not okay.
Yeah.
It's really
Absolutely
not okay.
not.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. If you like this conversation with Dave, if you want to find out more about R3 Development, please consider rating, reviewing, and subscribing. Thank you so much today.
Glad to be here.
Appreciate you.
Thanks for joining us at The Preventable, brought to you ad-free by Prevent+Ed. Prevent+Ed works to reduce or prevent the harms of alcohol and other drug use through education, intervention, and advocacy. Please visit their website at prevented.org. Like what you heard? Rate, review, and subscribe to stay up to date with what we are serving on The Preventable.